Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, CEO and founder of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author as well. Welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Sarah St. John. Sarah St. John is an entrepreneur, a podcaster, online course creator, and author. She has created several startups throughout her entrepreneurial career of over a decade. She currently owns a podcast production agency called PodSeam. She is also the podcast host of Frugalpreneur, building a business on a bootstrapped budget, which aims to show people how to launch and manage an online business on a budget. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Ms. Sarah St. John. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, it's exciting to have you on, and I've been looking forward to it for a while. We've been connecting here and there, and I was like, okay, finally I can get Sarah on the show. So it's good to hear from you, and I cannot wait to hear your story and what you're going to be sharing with my listeners today. But before we get started with all of that, could you please tell my listeners a little bit more about who Sarah St. John really is?
Sure. Yeah. So, I'm an online entrepreneur, podcaster. I started my journey over a decade ago, back in 2008. I had had 6 different jobs that year, not at the same time, but throughout the course of the year, and realized that working for someone else wasn't really my thing. And so the first business I started was a photography business, but it was getting expensive to maintain the equipment and all of that. And so I decided to switch to an online business model, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I tried a bunch of different things like drop shipping, affiliate marketing, blogging. Mm-hmm. And I discovered all these like free or affordable resources and software programs to run a business, you know, on a budget or almost close to free. And I thought, well, I've learned so much, I could write a book about it. And so I did. It was just kind of a spur of the moment. I was like, I'm going to write a book. And it's called Frugalpreneur. And then while I was writing the book, I got the idea to launch a podcast also called Frugalpreneur. And it was just going to kind of coincide with the book as an extra way to market it. And it was only going to be, 10 episodes or something. Mm-hmm. But I was getting more leverage and traction from the podcast than the book. And I love the connections I was making and the networking. So I've kept that up. I'm over 100 episodes now in a couple of years. And so, yeah, it's weird because it took me over a decade of trying to set and the other thing to kind of finally find that thing that clicked, I guess.
Yeah, well, a decade, it seems like it's a long time, but I think a lot of times we don't realize how much we actually do. I was sitting here when you said 6 jobs, and I was like, my jaw just dropped. It was just like, oh my goodness, So, trying to constantly find ourselves and figure out how we're going to grow and what we really want to do. And like you said, working is working. We know we have to have that stability in our lives, but at the same time, being an entrepreneur is a special thing, but it does take work. So, here you've created something. You've literally took nothing and made it into something. like you said, you're trying to figure out what you wanted to be when you grew up, so to speak. And then here you are a decade later, you've become this amazing entrepreneur. So talk a little bit more, I guess, about your full journey, because obviously, like I said, if you worked 6 jobs, you were doing many other things prior to that. What gave you the, I guess the word, the inspiration, to have you go through that process? Because 6 jobs is a lot in a year. And then doing some of the other things. I mean, did you come through college? What were some of the other things you decided to do prior to doing before you got into the entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, so I got an associate's degree in journalism, but then, and the plan was to go on, for a 4-year degree and so on. But I ended up getting married right after I got my associates, and then we had to pay bills, and so I didn't end up going back to school. So I had a variety of jobs, like retail and banking and some sales jobs and receptionist and these different types of things. And I just realized that I don't really like working for somebody else.
Right.
I want to do my own thing, because I've always I guess I didn't see it, that I kind of always had an entrepreneurial drive, because when I was a kid, I would gather up stuff that I would get for free, like pencils and candy, and then I would sell them to my friends. And so I think I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit, but I didn't really, I guess, pursue it or really, I guess, realize it until I had several, jobs working for other people.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, and then, and the other thing too, I think a lot of times, even though we're always excited about becoming an entrepreneur and owning a business, it's hard work and it's scary, and, like you were saying, when you started out doing the photography, photography is beautiful, but then, as you get into certain things, you start to learn what's working, what's not working, and the expenses that come with it. So it's a scary process to go through. But the thing I love about your spirit is that you didn't give up. You did, you decided, I got to find something else that I'm doing. And then all of a sudden, the first thing that comes out of your head is becoming an author. I mean, so it's like, wow, not too many people will usually take that step of becoming an author as well, because they usually just do the business, and then, people will kind of keep what they've learned to themselves and then try to put it out in different ways. But realizing that taking your experiences and you're sharing that experience in a book, and then now you've created, becoming having a podcast show that you literally thought was only going to last 10, episodes. And then here it is years later, you're still doing these things. And now you have these courses. Talk a little bit to the listeners about the course that you've created.
So the course I'm actually still working on, it's called Podcast Profit Pro. And originally my plan was for it to kind of cover some podcasting basics and then get into more like how to be a good host, how to be a good guest, and all that kind of stuff. But I've decided to cut out all the beginning stuff, because there's so many courses and whatnot already out there on, how to start a podcast and, the basics. So now I'm kind of focusing more on the whole how to be a good guest and host, but also kind of some tips and tactics on, how to monetize a podcast or get sponsors or, make connections and networking and all that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of reworking it and working on that right now, but I'm hoping it'll be finished and out there by the end of the year. Right.
But it's a lot of good information that you're talking about, because being a podcaster, as we talked a little bit earlier, having that fellowship is important. And once you realize how important that podcast has become for the business, and then learning how to monetize it, like you said, and have those connections, I think that to me is the hardest part. And then of course, when you get into some of the marketing as well, because now there are millions of podcasters out there, and how do you stand out? So if you have that secret sauce, definitely we're looking forward for you to share it.
Well, actually, hopefully by the time this episode actually airs, the course should be out by then, I guess. So, yeah, I'll have to send you the link to it if you want to include it in show notes or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely want to be able to, share everything that you provide, because there are many people who say that they want to get into podcasting, but then once they get into it, they really don't realize the amount of work that's done in the background, and then so the next thing you know, it's like, oh, what happened to the podcast show? Well, I just don't have time to do it, because it is considered work. And, I think people truly are still trying to understand how important a podcast is and how financially wealthy you can become by just doing podcasting. And it's just like I said, just trying to get those proper connections, understanding how do you host a show, how do you do interview layouts, all these little things that people can never physically see, because we're doing all of it in the background. So, talk about your agency. Yeah. But go ahead, you had something else you wanted to say?
Oh, no, that was actually kind of leading into it, because you had mentioned, people, when they start a podcast, they don't realize about all the back end stuff and post-production, all that. And I was actually just going to mention that that's kind of why I started the podcast production agency, is because, so many people start a podcast, like you said, not knowing. They just think they show up and record and that's about it.
Right.
But they don't realize everything that goes into it. And so that's what I help people with, is like, so they record their podcast, but then I do all the editing, the production, the show notes, transcripts, audiograms, social media graphics, guest management, all that kind of stuff. And just so that people are a lot less likely to pod fade if all they have to do is show up and record and then send that file over. So,
right.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed doing it. I've been doing it for my own show, and I figured, well, if I like it, why not get paid to do it for other people? So,
right. But it is literally a full-time job, just doing it. Everything you just mentioned. It's like, when you're looking at and you're talking to, you have that one episode, it's literally, you could probably spend anywhere from 5 to 10 hours, depending on how much effort and time that you're putting in, and what it sounds like that you're doing. Like, say, you're doing everything, like, so all they have to do is come and record, and, it's a satisfaction thing for people. And yes, it does truly help, when you have somebody in the background doing everything for you. So all you have to worry about is succeeding. I think the biggest thing that I have found and have learned is that when people also are doing it on that end, when all they're doing is recording, how are they utilizing that resource as far as once they have it aired, what are they really doing with that? How is it helping, benefit the business? I think those are some of the other things that are learned experiences that people get to go through. And it's great to have agencies like yours available so that people can understand, not just about, hey, well, you're doing the work, but there are other things that come with that process, that even though you're doing that background work, that individual, that host, still has to do their part as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like, as far as, repurposing the episode and sharing it with your guests and asking them to share it. And there's just so many steps, really, in the process.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So you also talk about launching and managing online businesses on a budget. So when we're talking about doing online business on a budget, let's get out of the podcast area. And what advice do you provide to people when it comes to trying to start an online business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I feel like for me that I wasted a lot of time trying, a million different things. And I mean, some people say, well, that's good, because then that kind of prompted the book, because then you can kind of cover a bunch of different things. But but for most people, when they're trying to figure out what type of online business, I would say, start with, well, first of all, what are you good at? What is something that you're good at, or it's something that someone tells you you're good at that you enjoy doing? And is there a way you could monetize that, even if it's just like teaching that thing? Could you create a course or a book or, something about that thing that, is just a hobby or something you're good at? So that's one thing. Or, if there's something you're really interested in, like a topic or subject matter, or an expert in, you could do coaching and consulting, or if you wanted to do the e-commerce route, like say maybe you make stuff, you could create a store, or I did drop shipping, which does work for some people, but I don't know, the profit margin, I mean, to really make much money off of it, the cart value has to be pretty high. So, and I was doing baby clothes. So, unless someone bought a whole bunch of stuff, I don't know. It seemed like I was spending more time than it was worth. So for me, that didn't really work out. But, yeah, I mean, there's so many options. And, some people might wonder about starting an online business versus like a brick and mortar or retail. Right. And my personal opinion is if it's something you can do online, especially if you don't have much of a budget, I definitely recommend doing it online because I run all my businesses now for under like $60 a month. It used to be around $100. The overhead is like hardly anything. Right. Right. Mm-hmm. And definitely, regardless of what type of business, I definitely recommend, creating a website and starting an email list. It's good to have social media too, but don't depend just on that.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Recently, a new client called me and started by saying, "Mr. Morgan, I really need your help, but I'm just a nobody." Those words stunned me, and I immediately called him back, and we're now helping him and his family after a terrible accident. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Everybody who comes to our firm at their time of need is a somebody. I grew up poor, but my grandmother was like a queen to us. At Morgan & Morgan, our goal is to level the playing field for you and your family at your time of need. The insurance company has unlimited money and resources. You need a firm who can fight them toe-to-toe. For right at 30 years, we have fought them in courtrooms throughout America. Our results speak for themselves. And always remember this: everybody is a somebody, and nobody is a nobody. Visit forthepeople.com to learn about our firm. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
Injured? Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Time of this recording, Facebook was out for like 6 hours the other day, and people were starting to wonder, like, is it ever coming back? And for me personally, because I don't depend on Facebook for my business, I kind of liked the break, and I was kind of like, oh, I wouldn't mind if it didn't come back. Other than running ads, Right. So I put a status up. I'm like, who else kind of secretly hoped that it wouldn't come back? And I had a friend comment who also is a business owner. She has a cake business, and she commented and said, oh, no, I was worried I'd lose all my business and contacts because she just has a Facebook page. And I repeatedly told her, you need to have a website. Right. And so I commented, I'm like, and this is why business owners need to have a website, because you never know with social media if, because MySpace went away overnight practically.
It did.
You just never know.
Yeah, it did. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And you're right. It's with Facebook. And it's funny because it wasn't just Facebook. It was Instagram, and then of course, if you were connected with WhatsApp, and because now a lot of people are using the WhatsApp as a big part of their business because of the free, having the phone numbers and the so-called security. So everything was down, and it was funny because when it did come back up, some people were like, "Oh my God, it was the end of the world," and other people were like, "Hey, that was a cool break." But you're right. The reality is that people need to realize you have to have other avenues to do your marketing. And it amazed me how many people didn't bother to say, hey, LinkedIn and Twitter were still available. So it wasn't that the social media world was completely gone, but the good thing about having like LinkedIn, for instance, it's all business owners. So there's your opportunity, to still continue to be able to build and, run your business if you still needed to have that social media aspect. And then, of course, we all know what Twitter does for itself. But you're right, having a website, even if it's a one-page website, it's better to have something that did not have anything in order for people to connect. But of course, the best thing to have too, in my opinion, of course, is always having email available. Yeah. So, like you said, if you don't have the, email addresses or people that you can connect with beyond the social media platform, that would be a tough day. It really would. I would agree, with the friend that told you, hey, what am I going to do with my people if we don't get this up and running? Of course, I didn't believe that they wasn't going to be able to get it back up. I think everybody thinks there's a little controversy about that with all the things that are going on right now with Facebook. But, overall, all the social media platforms, having email, all these things are important in websites that you have to have in a business. So I do have some questions. When you're talking about doing an online business, now you did give some great examples of what an online business could be, but just give us a little snippet of how that process would work if you want to actually start that online business, to get it up and running. What are the few steps that they would need to take?
So once you decide what type of business you're going to start and, create a name for it and all of that, then, creating the website, I would say would be the first thing. And you can do that either through, if you want something really easy, you could do like Wix or Weebly or Squarespace. I personally recommend WordPress because there's a lot more control, but there is kind of a learning curve there. But yeah, and then creating some sort of like lead magnet or freebie, or, it could be a checklist or a PDF or something, that you could get someone's email address. Basically, they, on your website, a landing page that says my top 10, tips for whatever it is. And to capture someone's email address, then you send them that thing, and then you have their email and you can market that way or have a way to contact them. So for the lead magnet and email, you would need a email provider. Like a email marketing. It's different than just your regular email. Okay. I use SendFox. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's especially for content creators like podcasters, bloggers, YouTubers. It's really neat because you put in your RSS feed or your YouTube channel, and it'll automatically generate weekly newsletters with your latest episode or video. Oh, and wow. So and it's free now up to 1,000 subscribers, and then it's affordable after that. Another one that's also free to start is MailerLite, and that's the other one I would recommend. And then, of course, there's MailChimp. I think those are the main ones that have free plans. But, yeah, getting that connected to your lead magnet and everything, I would say that those would be the very beginning steps to starting any type of online business, no matter what it is. Right. And then, of course, depending on what type of online business, then it kind of goes from there as to what you may need to run the business, like what type of software. And on my website, I actually have if you go to the website, which is thesarahstjohn.com, at the very top it'll say 27 tools I use, and if you click that, it actually has everything that I use, and a lot of it is actually free. And so that kind of give people an idea of what types of software that's free or affordable to help run the business. Okay.
And, that's a great
things.
It's a great tip, so we will definitely make sure that, that we will have that information available in the below area of description so that, hey, everybody understands this is where you can get some good free information. And that's the key. I think a lot of times that, people, when they come into business, they don't always truly do a small business plan. So they, their first thought is, okay, well, how much money can I spend or how much do I need? But at the same time, they have to look at everything else that comes with that process. So, I definitely recommend that, I don't care if the business plan is only on 2 sheets of paper, having something that you can physically see, that you can develop, and so that which direction that you can go. Like you said, once you've determined what that business is going to be, no matter what it is online, just having a clear understanding of your budget is truly, truly important. And I think a lot of times, when people come in, they'll jump out there and then they'll look up 90 days later, they're gone because they were not prepared for what they were getting themselves into. So, definitely like the ideas that you're giving and telling people what's available for free. But even once you get past that free, they definitely have to be prepared that, they can't have everything for free. So, having that budget available is truly, truly important. So absolutely. We are getting close to the end of the show, but I also want to find out, do you have anything else coming out that you want to share with the listeners about, you may have available, whether it's, I know your courses are coming towards the end of this year or next year, but do you have anything else you want to share?
Let's see. Well, I have 3 books, and so Frugalpreneur, Authorpreneur, and Podcastpreneur.
Oh, wow.
And I actually give... I give the PDF versions of all of those away for free on my website at sarahstjohn.com/free, and that's Sarah with an H and then STJOHN. And like the first book kind of goes over the different online business models and the resources and software to run them. And then in the process of writing that book, I thought, well, I guess I should write a book called Authorpreneur about what you need to self-publish a book. Mm-hmm. And then, I started getting the podcast going. And so I was like, oh, I guess I could write a book called Podcastpreneur. So I call it the Preneur series.
Okay. I like that. That is awesome. It gives everybody opportunity. So you give no excuses, right? It's like, look, you have these great 3 options. Which one do you want? And then it's free. I mean, I hope all the listeners are listening to this. It is free. You can't get it any better than that. So there's no excuses about, well, how am I going to start this? How do I start that? Now, obviously, we all know that, with everything still being free, you still have, like we were talking earlier, your role and your responsibility, and it's going to still take work. So, I hope that people who are listening, who are truly willing to step up into their greatness, that they actually, reach out to you and learn more about what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it means to be a podcaster, and what it means to be an author. That's what we're all here for. And I love it talking to you because you and we're like little twins here. Because everything that you have is like, oh my gosh, we do the same thing. I love it. It's great. It's always great to have the perspective from another entrepreneur and their journey. And your journey has been very interesting. And I love the simplicity of what you talk about and what you've accomplished. And it just goes to prove every day is that, it's not about how many degrees you have. It's not about, what the best job is. It's truly taking what you have as an individual and putting it to work. And that's exactly what you've done. So it has been such a pleasure to have you on. Sarah, do you have anything else you would like to share before we end this evening?
I guess that's about it. I guess the only quick piece of advice is, try to avoid shiny object syndrome, because I didn't do a very good job of that. And I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to struggle with that. And it slows us down. And finally, I'm past that. But as long as you can recognize when it's happening, and try to avoid it.
All right. Well, we heard it live here. Avoid these things, okay? So Oh my goodness. So, all right. Well, Sarah, it has been such a pleasure to have you on my show this evening. And I cannot wait for people to, truly dig into what they want to do with their lives. We all this evening had the opportunity to learn about how to launch a business online on a budget. And, it's not about how big or how small it is, but we cannot stress how important it is that you all have to take your responsibility as well. We can give you all the information you need to have, but if you don't do anything with it, you will never be able to move forward. So like I said, it always leads me into asking people, what are your dreams? Hey, reach out to me anytime at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com. And we can always have that chat so we can put your dreams and turn them into goals. And of course, if you want more of your resource for success, we do take monetary donations. We're always accepting that to support our podcast. And we'll have the information below so that you can send your the monetary donation to, or you can go directly to the website at www.wsbilc.com as well to send those donations. And again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next week with more amazing guests, and be sure to follow us right here on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcast. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening and good night. And again, thank you, Miss Sarah.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
People are driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search. Match with Indeed. The hiring process can be slow and overwhelming. Simplify hiring with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. With over 350 million global monthly visitors according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. That's Indeed.com/PODKATZ13. Terms and conditions apply.